Welcome to Radio. We are back with little Dave. He has an off day. I have back, and he has a high day tomorrow. So
Mhm.
you're excited for that.
It should be fun.
Yeah. And I mean, I haven't been running your carbs super low. I think people will hear me say, "Oh, he's on 400 grams of carbs on a base day," and like, go fuck yourself. And for you and your off seasons, then that is relatively low. So. Yeah. So when we bump you up to what I think I have your high day right now set at what 626, if my memory is right, somewhere around
Mhm.
there. It's 600 plus. Um, and that will give you such the ability to go in the gym and just dump everything for the next 2 days, and then you'll take another off day. It'll be low and like it's that like cyclical diet approach that I've always loved as a premise, but it works really well for you.
Mhm. Yeah, my
And
buddy's always been a big fan of that.
yeah. And you know why I think that is I believe that I'm not going to call it a system, but when I run nutrition like that with guys, the ones who really train their face off and it's constant, it works well, right? Like a lot of guys will train like here and then I give them high carbs and they go here. Where you're always here. So to me, it's like your body's like, okay, cool, like we have a change in stimulus with food, not exercise. And I get it. Like, not everyone may want to go full tilt and do two plates and double band JM press like you did yesterday. But here we are.
Fair.
So, yeah, I mean, and psychologically with you, when you get a high day, do you feel any more amped up or you just feel that fucking all the food and the supplements we use on those days?
Yeah, pretty much the second option. I just I know it's going to be a fun workout, and I mean I usually wake up every day like I'm like, all right, cool. I'm training this, and I'm training this after meal four, and I'm like that's my what I look forward to in the morning.
Correct.
So like when you're like, oh, okay, cool, I get an extra 200 grams of carbs today, going towards the workout what I'm already excited for.
Right. Yes. 100%. That again, that's why this dieting structure works well for you. It's why you continue to grow and stay relative. Like the each year, I feel like you get bigger and you stay leaner in the off season. Like,
Set.
and what's interesting about that is I think a lot of people are saying, "Oh, well, he must do like main gaining with him," and no, it's called having more muscle and learning your body. Like, and then when you pair that with you doing all of the work, if I ask you to do cardio, you do it. If I say, "Hey, I need you to train legs today with purpose," that's what happens. It's just years of consistency. And again, I know that's not sexy to talk about. But when you do something consistently, you learn to perfect it for you. And like that, of everything we just started by talking off here, like that, I pray that's what people hear from it, right? Like
Yeah.
there's, I don't believe my plans are magical. They are when it's paired with hard work.
Yeah.
Um, so
Well, that's one of those things. I mean, like anyone you get your information from, if consistency and intensity aren't on the top of their list for what they're selling you, they're lying to you.
agreed.
They just want money.
Right.
If they're like, "Oh, this program we're gonna do this, this, and this," but consistency and intensity are not on the top of their requirements for it to work. Like, let it make sense. Like, oh, cool, we're gonna build muscle, but you also don't have to train hard.
Right.
Oh, we're gonna get you in stage shape, but you also don't have to diet.
Yes.
My clients don't do more than an hour of cardio.
Right.
Like that kind of shit. It's like
Yeah.
that. You may have one.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. What's funny is I know a lot of kids now, like they don't understand like the infomercial age that we grew up in. And it's like abs in 15 minutes. Like,
Yeah,
use the Thigh Master and your legs will look incredible in a month. And it's like that's what I hear when I see coaches out there preaching like hard rules, like you said. My clients never go below 200 grams of carbs. They never do more than 3 days of cardio. They never take any sets to failure. And I'm like, huh. Uh, for everyone?
yeah.
Like, not your genetic elite. Okay, cool, awesome. Um, Again, that's why I think you never see us making these like crazy ass claims because as a whole, I would say most of my clients would say, "Hey, Chris, like you fed me more than any coach has ever fed me." But at the same time, like if we had to go rock bottom food to get all the fat off, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna live and die by having like a principle of my coaching stand in my way. Like,
Yeah,
oh shit, I'm I'm Chris. I don't have any of my clients do cheat meals. Well, if you need Five Guys because I can't get you full enough off of diet food, I'm gonna do it. Like,
yeah. You might even do
kudos.
it back to back days.
Yeah. Yes. Again, that's why you and I always joke that we don't have any rules. Like, you take the update or the client, however you want to look at that, and you view it in a fucking tunnel and you say, okay, what is going to make them their best? And then I execute that plan or I put out that plan on paper. And if my plan works, hell yeah. If it doesn't, then I have to retool that plan and come back to it. Like there are things that I've had you try that just worked okay. I've had things that you tried that's worked incredible. Like, and again, I think that again, that comes with experience coaching and not being tied to principles, right? Like I'm not a big fan of Greek yogurt for as far as a protein source. But if I have a client who loves it and progresses with it, I'm gonna try it until it stops working or it gives them an issue. Um, I'm trying to think of some other things that for example, like as a whole, I enjoy some hit cardio in people's plans for heart health, for making them be able to train harder and longer. But if that wears your legs down to where you can't train legs hard, I'm not gonna put it in your plan. Like
Yeah,
it's not. So
yeah. There's other ways to do that. And I
correct.
think the fun part, you can control the training. I could make you do a hit without making you know when you're doing a hit.
Damn
We're
right.
just gonna do long sets on a leg extension or leg press.
I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like a rest pulse set is technically hit. Like, it, especially if I said, all right, Dave, I want you to do let's say like you just said leg extensions. I want you to fail mini set one around 25 reps. Okay. So let's say you hit 26, and then set two, you hit 15, and then set three, you do 10. You're fucked. And your heart
Yeah,
rate through the roof.
yeah, yeah. That's one of my favorite ones to throw in there. Is just like, all right, cool. Find a weight what's a hard 10 and get 30 with it.
Yes, yes. Yep.
And if you can't fully extend your leg, that's not a rep. So take a 5-second breather and go again.
You remember those John called them championship sets with like dumbbell rows? And it was like
Yeah,
do 30 or 25. And man, you would do one arm and be gassed. And like, okay, now we're gonna rest 2 minutes and then we're gonna do the other arm. That's hit cardio. I don't care what anybody says. Like you're getting
hmm
fucked up. And it wasn't like we were doing the 50-pound dumbbell. That was like 100s, 120s, 130s, like
yeah.
rip and rip.
I remember there's an old video of like Antoine with that, and he was using like the 150s.
Yes.
He's like, it was his plan was like work up to a hard set of 8 and get 30.
Yes. I think I don't know if you remember long, long years ago, back when he was Matt Croc, he would call them Croc rows. Where it's like
Yeah,
just grab a heavy ass dumbbell and do 20 to 30. Like,
yeah,
and that was so popular. Shit, when I started working with John, and now I think the science community would beat that to pieces. None of them look like Matt before he transitioned. So
yeah,
yeah, they aren't even as big as he is now and fully transitioned. So, all right, I'm gonna get off that topic before I get myself in trouble.
yeah.
All right, so we had three questions left over from last week, and they were pretty detailed, or in our minds, we wanted to spend some time on them. So I didn't want to rush to those last week. So let's start with the first one. This says the best way to get stronger on barbell compounds and keep that strength during dieting. So I guess let's start with what have you found the best way to get stronger at, like, let's say incline barbell rows, deadlifts, and squats?
Usually, depending on like starting out, like honestly, volume. And then once you hit a certain point, you can't do the volume. And that's just going to be a matter of maybe 2 or 3 sets now instead of 5, 6.
Yes. Yep.
And basically, especially with, I mean, like bench press is probably, and I'm not a power lifter and I've never done any strength specific stuff in my life, but every time I worked up to a heavy set, like I took a weight and I learned how to get 15 with it, I would just throw another quarter on.
Yes. Yep.
If it was a hammer strength machine, I would just go buy a plate.
Yeah.
So if it's a machine, a plate, and I disregard, just don't use the fives and tens.
Yes. Agreed.
That like learn how to get 15, and then when you throw a quarter on or a plate on, it definitely should be north of six,
Yeah. 100%.
and then learn how to get 15 with that again. Like it sounds so simple, but it's honestly so simple.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you said everything I was going to say. I think at the beginning, and when I say beginning, like if you aren't strong, and we've listed our strength parameters here countless times, um, you need volume because you need skill acquisition. You have to be able to, in my mind, with a barbell, and that's squats, deadlifts, barbell rows, anything with a bar in your hands, bench press, incline. Um, to me, you have to be able to generate force against the bar. So control the negative, but not like this like 5 count negative. You need to own the weight going to your chest, for example, in a press. And then you need to ram that thing to the ceiling as fast as humanly possible and make that bar pop. And what I mean by that is you have the bar and the collar, and that bar needs to pop inside that collar and go is what it should sound like. On your warm-up sets and feeder sets, that's what the bar should sound like. You should be exploding the bar, control the negative, explode up. Once you begin to master that, I always found my strength to start to go here because what you want to do is, let's say your top end set of a incline barbell is 225 for six. If at 185 you can still get bar pop, 9 times out of 10 you can hit 225 for 10. And then after you hit 225 for 10, then you start producing bar pop with 225 for the first few reps. And then it starts to slow down as you approach 12 and 15 reps. Then when you put the quarter on there, you should be able to produce bar pop for all 6 to 8 feeder reps of 225. And just like you said, like that's how I always did everything. When I was young, we didn't do tens and fives and two and a halves. Like, no, that's a joke. Like it was plate quarter jumps. And
yeah,
you handled a plate or a quarter jump, one, when one of your buddies would antagonize you for being a weak bitch, or two, as you said, you hit a ceiling of say 12 to 15 reps, and then hey, guess what? It's time to put a plate or a quarter on. So I guess that part of lifting has been lost in the nuance of training today. Is
yeah.
if you and I are lifting together, and let's say we're doing 365 on incline barbell, and it flies off your chest for five, I'm pulling it to the rack, and I'm like, you're hitting 4 plates, right? Yeah, it's as simple as that. Um, so that to me is step one: skill acquisition, and then learning how to create force on the bar. Um,
Yep.
and then just time, and consistency. Like I've always felt like barbell movements need to be placed second or third within a workout. And I know that if a lot of you guys out there are starting with it first, just by moving it second or third, that will force your strength to go up if you get back to what you were doing with it at first. So if that example of incline barbell for six for 225, if you were doing that first in rotation on chest day and then you move it to the third or second, 9 times out of 10, you're either going to lose reps with 225 or not even going to get there. So step
Hmm.
one is just getting back to what you were doing, because that with time and practice, like let's say you start with incline dumbbell or say you start with a hammer strength press to kick the day off for chest. After you get used to doing that first and then in an incline barbell, you'll feel better because you're more warm and your shoulders are ready.
Hmm.
So that would kind of be like where the place I would start, or those three things that we just talked about. Let's transition that into the second half of that question: is how do you maintain that strength throughout a prep or deficit?
Well, the one of the biggest things is like we were talking about this earlier is well, it also comes down to doing it for a while,
Yes. Yep.
right? So if you're benching 315, 365 on incline barbell, and then you're doing that when you start prep, you should be able to keep that throughout prep. That's it's maybe a little bit different. Like there are going to be times it's going to feel heavier, But I always like pointing this out, like just because you don't have carbs doesn't mean you don't have the muscle.
Agreed.
Like the
Yes.
muscle is still on your body,
Right.
right? And if you want to keep it there, you have to keep that strength. So
Yeah.
that honestly also means being honest with yourself too. Because I've seen a lot of guys who, they start a prep and they're benching 275 on incline barbell, and then they get in prep and they jump up to 315, and they're like, man, I only got that for 4. I'm getting weaker.
Right.
It's like, well, fuck, dude. Like, you didn't get any weaker. It's the same amount of strength, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I've always had a rule with strength going into a prep. So for a long time, I gauged if I could maintain 315 on incline barbell for 10, that's how I wanted to make through the prep. And I'd always tell myself, my final week of off season, if I can do 315 or 10 and not need a spotter to even stand behind me, I should be able to maintain that throughout my prep, meaning 315 on the bar. May it drop down to 6 or 8 reps? Maybe, maybe. 9 times out of 10, if I can do it without a spotter and feel confident, I'll be able to hold that throughout the entirety of the prep. Now, there's also other lifts where, as you know, through working with me, like you will gain strength on going into prep, like the whole way fucking through. It won't be until like 3, 4 weeks out that you'll start to see any type of stagnation. And that comes down to two things, in my opinion: intelligent nutrition around training, right? I have no issue starving you away from your workout. None, zero. I need people to hear this. None. I don't care. Be hungry at work. It doesn't matter to me.
Yep. There's plenty of time. There's plenty of times my diet has been fish and air outside of my pre-workout window.
Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, how many times have I had your carbs at say 200 or 250, and that's all been peri-workout? The rest is zero. Like, and in my mind, how I always justify that is I need his workouts to be A1 end of the day. Like that's the king of all of this. If you can maintain muscle and strength and potentially build muscle into a show, why would I not want to fuel that window of before the session, during the session, recovery after the session, and then we starve at the extremes? And I say starve, that's relative.
Yeah.
The less amount of food, I guess would be the way to best put that. So that's step one. Also, I think the food that I put around your workout is intelligent in the fact that like they're balanced meals pre-lift. So like I've had coaches where I've worked with that it's a ton of protein, ton of carbs, and no fat pre-lift. Well, halfway through that workout, I've burned through everything.
Hmm.
I can feel it. The reason I put a touch of fat in all my pre-lift meals for people, and that can be anywhere between 6 and 12 grams, is to slow the digestion of those carbohydrates. So it's a more sustained energy. And I know that not everyone's going to believe that. I'm just telling you it works. It's true. And then when you
Yeah.
pair that with intra workout, and man, listen, we've had your carbs as low as 20 intra. We've had it off the charts high, but you still have something in there, right? There's
Yeah.
still essentials, there's still fluid, there's salt, and then there's some carbs. And to me, if I do that and you aren't in the gym for 7 hours, like like you're going to be able to sustain performance for 60 to 90 minutes. And I feel confident in that. Like, so I
Yeah.
think that is number one. So intelligent nutrition. If you're sleeping like absolute dog shit and your stress is high, you're not going to maintain your strength. You're just not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So if all those things are in steady state, then the next thing to me is it's here. Because the amount of competitors I hear, well, Chris, I'm in prep, I'm going to get weaker. Who told you that? The internet? Like some skinny kid on the internet? Awesome. I would
Yeah.
listen to him. False. Like the only time you'll get weaker is if you allow your body to do so. In
Yeah.
my, if things are set up intelligently and you aren't have to do like drastic weight cuts or 3 hours of cardio a day, or you aren't working 18-hour shifts, like there's some things that play into there. If you have constant variables in your life, you should not take weight off the bar.
Yeah.
Will it be harder? Yes. But it comes down to how tough are you mentally to prepare. I remember sitting down with 150-pound dumbbells with 2 weeks out, and I looked at Alex and I said, "Do not allow me to get less than 8." And that's the mindset. Like, I'm gonna sit back with these. They're gonna feel like they're gonna crush me, and they're gonna be heavy as fuck. It doesn't matter. Get eight.
Mhm.
And then guess what? The same mindset. We went right there. Incline barbell, 3 plates on there. If I get less than eight, you push this bitch on my chest. Got it. And I know that not everyone may able to be able to summon that like level of anger and rage and hostility, but I get pissed off of myself and be like, listen here, Chris, like you are better than this. You've done it countless times at this point. There's nothing to be scared of. Rip the weight and let's move on.
Mhm. And another thing, training wise, like in all reality, like if you're not feeling strong that day, fantastic. That set of bench press where you dumbbell with 150s, end it there. Don't do a back off.
Agreed. Yes.
Just do
Yes.
one really hard fucking set, then
Yep.
move on.
Yep.
That's the one thing I see every fucking time is, oh, I can't do the 150s, so I'm gonna do the 140s, but I'm gonna end up doing them 4 fucking times.
Yes. Yeah. 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 And
Like good luck recovering from that.
right, I was like, you end up having more fatigue than if you just did one hard set with 150.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I'll tell you this: the barbell will feel heavy. There are days when I unrack a back squat with four and a quarter, and I'd look at my training partner Josh, and I'd be like, "Man, I'm gonna have to work for these."
Yeah.
He'd slap the shit on my back, and I'd do it. Like, sometimes shit just feels heavy. Other days you go in there and things feel great. Like
Yeah.
it's just a matter of accountability mirror. Like if you're cruising around, I really believe in my heart, right? Like the people I see doing this are the ones who are like responding to DMs while they train. They're
Yeah.
like they're scrolling Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat, or they're looking at fucking pictures of their girlfriend's tits that she just sent over. Listen, there's time for that. While I'm training is not one of them.
Yeah. Like, get off your phone, especially in prep. Like the
Yes.
only thing you should have your phone for is music if you have it.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
Turn it on. We have that nifty feature on our phones called Do Not Disturb,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if Androids have that, but throw it in fucking airplane mode,
I don't either.
right? Don't get a fucking call. Don't get a text.
Right.
If you don't have an hour, like this makes me laugh. If you don't have an hour of your day where you don't have to have your phone, like you need to reprioritize your life.
Yeah.
I
Agreed.
know zero people, right? I know people who are in top executive positions and they're busy as fuck. They have 45 minutes to an hour they can shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You know, like being off Instagram for an hour will not kill you.
No. No. I and I think that level of misguided focus is what leads to that, right? Because it's like you're a dog chasing cars. No, the difference is if you're in there on a mission, you're like, hey, I have to hit these benchmarks, three or four of them in a session. I'm constantly thinking about that shit. From
Mhm.
exercise one to exercise last. Like it doesn't matter. Focus for that little bit of time, and I promise, all that shit on your phone will still be there when you go in the locker room. It will.
Yeah,
I promise. And if it's an emergency, your wife or girlfriend or brother, dad, mom will call you. And if it's one of those important people in your life, answer it and be done with it. Right? Like I
yeah,
believe that in my heart. Yeah. Anyways, I think we thoroughly answered that.
yeah.
Next question. It just says all things insulin related. So, all right, maybe the most logical place to start is educating people on the differences between long acting and fast acting insulin, maybe. Like, I think that's where we would start logically. So,
Mhm.
you want to talk about maybe why someone would use Lantus over Humalog and then vice versa?
Hey, I'm personally on the like. Well, Atlantis is a fun one too because like one thing I don't think a lot of bodybuilders realize is insulin is a drug made for people who don't have a functioning pancreas,
Yes.
right? So the way they function is way different in bodybuilders with a actually like we're athletes. So I have the ability to burn through carbs, fats, and proteins like a motherfucker.
Yes.
Someone who is diabetic, chances or type 2 diabetic, the fuck they do. They don't burn through food at all that well. Their body's not good at it.
Yeah.
So I mean, long acting insulin, if you want to do that, like, in my opinion, if you want to do that twice a week on like a weak body part, at like a low starting dose. But you also have to realize that the 24-hour insulin for bodybuilders is probably closer to 8 to 10.
Agreed. Yes. Yep. Yep.
So keep that in mind. And that would be probably around a high carb day,
Yes. Yep.
and you're a weak body part, driving up, you know, the, I mean, Atlantis is a good one for driving up IGF-1 levels, but that's a whole different topic. Um, and then Humalog would be used more. That's pretty much, I mean, if you want to put it in that way, that one's a scalpel, and the other one is a hammer.
Correct. Yes. Yep. What's going to happen?
Um, and if you need to push a little bit more food, like well, people get that wrong either way from the get go. Is they don't. I mean, your diet is already in place. All you're doing with insulin is changing how your body utilizes the current diet you have. So utilizing insulin doesn't mean your carbs go to a gram, or all right, cool. I'm using insulin, so I need 100 grams of carbs this meal. It's like, all right, what does your body already use for this meal, and how do we utilize this food better? Not the opposite.
Okay, so that's a great overview to start. Now, the next thing I want to go into, and it's something I believe in my heart, and I need people to listen. To me, if your body fat is high, I don't think that's the time to use it.
Yep. Oh, not a good idea.
By high, I'm going to give you some parameters. If you can't see your abs, if you don't have vascularity through your arms and legs, insulin is not for you. I'm sorry. If you don't follow a strict meal plan, to me, insulin is not for you. If you're not a diabetic and a doctor is prescribing it to you. So those are some like quick, fast rules, in my opinion. So if that's
Oh, 100%.
you out there, diet the fat off before you even consider adding insulin because all it's going to do is make you fatter. Like most people don't understand that insulin is literally efficient at gaining. Notice I said gaining. It can be fat or muscle, by the way. So,
It's just a storage. I mean, it's a transport hormone. It's
correct.
just a fucking bus driver.
Yes.
And
Yep.
that bus driver is going to go wherever it can to drop off its nutrients. So if
Follow,
you're
follow
taking insulin, slamming food, and not giving your body a reason from hard training to, grow, where the fuck do you think that food's going to go?
right to your belly. Like, yes. And it being a shuttling nutrient, you have to think about, okay, what do you put in your body for it to shuttle? And that's why I'm always like, if you aren't following a meal plan, I find it very hard to understand why you would even want to start to experiment with that. Yes, it is one of the most anabolic substances we can use. Do I think that I've made guys round as fuck with using insulin? I think it's helped a lot. I'm a fan of it. Um, but you have to be strategic, and I have to know that you're gonna one, train hard. And hard, I've seen training with insulin work well with both volume and high intensity, like you and I do. It works in both those scenarios. And then you can look at any of Milos's guys and dear God, like use that as an example. They lost of food, insulin, growth hormone, you're gonna round out. It's gonna work. But hard to me is like you have to choose one modality, intensity or volume. And I'm like, by volume, you're not going to pick up the pink dumbbells, by the way. So
Yeah.
that to me is the next like tenet of insulin. The next thing is, dear God, know how to do some chemistry and math.
Yeah.
So you're going to use, say, 8 units of insulin pre-lift. Know how to get eight.
Yeah.
We're not going to explain that to you on the internet right now, but dear God, it's like growth hormone to me. It's like any gear. If you don't know how to get 8 units of insulin, be leery. You can fuck
Yeah.
stuff up real quick or get zero effects from it because you aren't using enough. So
Mhm.
they fine line there. Um, let's see. Some other common questions that I hear a lot. Chris, can I have fat on insulin days that I use insulin? So let's say you have a high carb day. There's, I'm going to say, common knowledge in the bodybuilding world that you can't have any fat on the days that you use insulin and have high carbs. Is that a fact?
No, not really.
Okay, good.
Like back to our original statement is that you should be your body should be used to turning your body into a furnace of burning food is step one.
Yes. Yes.
If your body can't handle 80 calories from fat
Right.
added to a meal, and you think that's going to make you fat, your diet's out of whack. It's not the insulin making you fat. It's you are. It's a transport hormone. So it's only going to be able to store what it can store.
Yes.
So like you can't have, oh, I'm going to have these high carb days of I'm going to eat 9,000 calories today, but my total limit before was 4,000. It was
Yes.
like, well, you're going to get fat.
Right. Yes.
The game plan with insulin is like, okay, maybe we store an extra 200 grams of carbs,
Yes. Yeah.
not 2,000.
Yes. I'm going to tell a story about, well, let's call both these guys Chris and Dave.
Yep.
There was a period in time where we were both using insulin and we came to a similar conclusion. Man, we're starting to go hypo, and it doesn't matter how many more carbs we have, it doesn't work. I'm still going hypo and sweating. And I said, huh, let's have 14 grams of pistachios. And it went away.
Yep.
So, what are pistachios? Yes, it has protein. Yes, it has some carbs in there, but I was using it for fat. I needed to slow down the process of what that human log was pushing through, right? Which was just rapidly shuttling carbohydrates. So I have found through self-experimentation with clients that sometimes some people need some fats to just harness that down just a touch. Because I'd done it where I was at like 250 grams of carbs in a meal and it was still getting worse. So add some fats, chills right out. Not a problem. Um, the last thing I think I'll touch on here is all things insulin for me, I learned from John and Milos. And they were big proponents of Humalog, meal one, pre-lift, post-lift. And if you structure that properly, with the right nutrients and timings and the amount of insulin, you can get a super compensation effect where your workouts are insane, your pumps are crazy, and you look incredible. And I just feel like that is a much better approach of doing it 2 or 3 days a week than just banging insulin every single day with like Lantus, for example.
Mhm.
Because as you said to start, we have a fully functioning pancreas. I just want jet fuel in my body. And we do that by just rocketing fucking carbs and nutrients and essential aminos into our bloodstream. So when we train, guess what happens? Everything is super anabolic and you create a growth window. And I know that every like science kid's going to bang on this and tell me I'm a moron, but you haven't done it. And if you ever get the ability to do where your meals are perfect, you're relatively lean, and you do everything right from a nutrition and supplement standpoint, and then you add in insulin with Serostim, you'll find an incredible harmony of like, I've never looked this crazy in my entire life.
Yeah.
And are there secret? Am I saying it's a secret? No, I'm literally sharing it with everyone. But if you notice, it all works in synergy. It's not just insulin and growth hormone. It's not just food, and it's not just great training. It's all of those working as an orchestra, playing together to create a masterpiece. And
Mhm.
to me, that's all things insulin. Anything you want to
Yep.
add to that?
No, that's really about it.
Maybe for sure, if you
Don't be
have one, if
don't
you
be
have,
stupid.
yes, yes, I was gonna say,
If you can't do basic math, don't. If you don't know how many carbs are 50, what roughly 50 grams of carbs is, you have no idea. Like, just don't fucking touch it.
um, I think something else like please God have a glucose monitor
Yeah. Yeah, no joke.
and know how to use it. Um, they're what, $30 on maybe $20 on Amazon. If you're using insulin, you're not scared of needles. So prick your finger and find out what your fucking blood sugar is. Like
Yeah.
it's simple. And a lot of times, like I know this is gonna sound funny, but because we just said be careful, a lot of times you just can't panic and go eat a Chinese buffet when you start feeling a little hypo. Like,
Oh, yeah, that one's a huge one. Well, that one always makes me laugh because doing math, right? If you took X amount of insulin, you know it's going to move X amount of carbs. If you already ate X amount of carbs, you probably don't need an extra 100.
Yes.
So you may be able to fix that with very little.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I've also found like I've had guys they're like, Chris, I'm starting to go. I'm like, have a Diet Coke and take some deep breaths.
Yeah,
It works. Or chew a stick of gum, right? Like the bad thing is like I think when guys go hypo, they panic, so their heart rate elevates and they start to sweat even more. Then they're like, I gotta eat all the carbs, and then you have this insatiable appetite that can't be fixed.
hmm,
So that's a terrible combo of like panic, hunger, and you're like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? I'm like, you just need to calm down, take a deep breath. Like you're going to be okay, I promise. How do you know, Chris? I've been there.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, again, I think as you said, the final thing to do here is like just be careful. That if you're going to experiment on yourself, start crazy low. Like it's better to use too little and not fill it. And like, okay, cool. I used 2 units today. Let's try four, and then six.
yeah.
Oh,
Well, and that's the fun thing is you can always. This is every single drug on the planet. Is you can always take more. You can
yes,
never take less.
right, yes, yeah,
You right? It's just that goes for everything on the planet,
yeah,
right? So like if you're starting out, like you read like, oh, Milos is using 15 IUs.
right.
Like, don't start there.
No,
For the love
no,
of God, do not start there.
no, no. I mean, I think anyone that has been following me for a long time, I used to always post like the secret sauce, and it was like this giant plasma bottle full of recovery Gatorade, coconut water, and they're like, "What the fuck is in there?" I'm like, "The secret elixir." Like, so yeah. Um, Again, be smart, be leery. If you haven't nailed your nutrition, I think that's something that should be completely off the table.
Yeah,
This is an advanced level supplement or drug or whatever you want to call it to me, and I will always view it that way. So again, be careful. All right, final question here of the day, and it's a good one. I have to make sure I get the words right here. What would you tell your late 20s version of yourself to start doing immediately?
more mobility work.
You just said that to me in your update not too long ago. Or maybe the text, I can't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah. That, I mean, yes. Yeah. When you're 20, your body feels relatively healthy and you don't understand and appreciate the mobility until you get like into your 30s and you're like, man, I really should have spent more time on that, huh?
yeah.
Because reversing lack of mobility is way harder than just keeping it. Um, yeah.
And that's something I see way too often. Like the, your ability to grow is also based on your ability to use your muscle.
Yes. Yeah.
If you can't open your chest up like this because your thoracic spine is so tight, you physically can't go like this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How do you think you're going to grow your chest?
Agreed.
It's not going to happen. And that's not your chest's fault.
No.
It's not your genetics. It's not any of that.
Because
It's just the fact that something's stuck and not working.
yeah. And the example you gave of chest is perfect, right? If your chest is always stuck shortened, how do you expect to get it lengthened? A lot of load? Okay, if you do a lot of load to get it lengthened, that muscle is eventually going to tear, right?
Yeah,
It has to, it doesn't have a choice. Um, because it's trying to protect your body from hurting itself. So that's what you just said there, mobility. I mean, listen, I wish in my 20s I'd have done that too. So that's great advice. For me, I think it was this. In my 20s, I was so obsessed about being perfect with everything that I think I missed out on some growth of having fun. Because my early 20s, man, I was in there gripping, ripping weight. I didn't care. When I got to my late 20s, and I think that's what his question said. Let me look. I want to make sure I was right. Late 20s, yes. By my late 20s, I was starting to consume a lot of like trying to take my training and nutrition, everything to the next level. I was starting to get in here way too much. And I was like,
hmm,
everything has to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, I'm wasting time. And I'm already almost 30. Like, and everything you hear is like, oh, if you're not a pro by 25, or if you're not winning titles by 30, or you're not top five nationals at 30, like you need to quit. And I'm like, fuck, I gotta do this right. Well, in my mind now, it's much less about perfect and it's much more about how many things can I touch perfect in a week, right? Are my meals
yeah,
perfect? Yes, that's just a simple action item, yes or no. Am I training to the best of my ability? Yes. Awesome. Will hiccups happen in life that throw me off to deter me from being a little perfect? Yes. And then with training, what is truly perfect? Once I erased that shit from my brain and thought, what feels the best and what gives me the most joy in life, my body went this way and took off in growth.
Yeah. Sometimes, just running in the right direction
Yes.
versus trying to figure out which direction to run in. Like, you got to figure out real fast what's going to work. You
Yes.
know, actually doing something versus, overthinking it.
Yep.
It
You,
always that always gets so much better results.
I will believe this until I'm blue in the face. Going in the gym and training your fucking face off, even if it's wrong, will elicit more results than being scalpel focused in training at like 30 to 40% intensity.
Hmm.
I believe that in my heart, and I've seen it over and over again with clients. Because guess what happens? The people who are going like crazy hard, when I harness their hard and make it perfect, then they already have that skill. Where the person who's so hyper focused and vigilant on perfect doesn't understand intensity, then what? What happens when that perfect stops working because you need to implore intensity? They've never acquired that skill.
Hmm.
Um, that's another small rant for everyone in my mind. Like
Yeah,
there's some things, there's a time to be cute in the gym, there's time to rip it. And I think if people have been watching us long enough, they know that. You know,
yeah,
there's exercises where I have you want to, I want you to be a little bit more precise on, so you don't hurt yourself, or we're going after a very particular section of the muscle. Like
yeah. If
I'm
I'm
never
doing a Y raise, I'm not going to swing that.
right. Yes, right,
But
right.
like the other 2 days ago, and you had me do cable rows. You know, like also you can go watch that video. Watch my spine. Right, my lower back never rounds.
Nope.
There's two reasons for that. I'm strong enough to support that. My hips are able to open up so they can support that. That's back to mobility work.
Yes.
And
Yep.
then three, that's your body's meant to do that shit. It's meant to move.
Yes. Agreed.
Your body doesn't just work in, all right, cool, we're going to be in a stuck plane.
Yes. Yep.
Your body's a system. Your glutes are attached to your hips for a reason. Your low back and your hips are interconnected for a reason. Your ability to hip hinge and hold that requires those three things to be on.
Yep. Agreed.
It's not just, and I mean, lastly, erectors look cool on stage. That's the last part of that little sentence, you know,
Yep.
but there's a reason why they're there.
Yep. You know, I'm going to tie our two ideas together because I think you summed it up really well. What I'm talking about, like, how again, there's this focus on locking everything down, being super stable and secure. Well, the body isn't meant to work that way. I think that, like, if I use a dumbbell row, for example, I think I personally I execute that lift great because I allow that back and lat to open up and then fully shorten. And it's almost like a pendulum where now I see these kids get on the cable row and they're like braced on a bench. They're super locked in, everything's tight, and you're not seeing the muscle open and get full and then fully contract. And I think there's something to that, right? Like you can't always stay in the shortened position and think that's where all the growth lies. Like it's throughout the entire spectrum of that rep, from a fully lengthened to a fully shortened, in my mind. Again, I know that might be getting a bit too complicated for some people, but you know, like if you look at you or I hack squat, there's a reason we sit down hamstrings to calves. Why do you think that is? It's to fully stretch that fucking VMO. We aren't thinking like, oh, we have to get the perfect contraction on this hack squat. No, it's all the way down, three-fourths of the way up. Keep the tension on the muscle and go again. Like, yeah, it's literally as simple as that. So, yeah, I think that's what we would tell ourselves. Also, I think maybe just keep patience, man. Like, it's not a rush. It's just not a rush. Like,
Yeah.
I know there's pressure, especially now with Instagram, to always stay lean and always look great. And as you and I both know, there are periods of time where you and I look like superheroes, and there's periods of time where we may not feel comfortable taking our shirt off.
Yeah. That's very true.
And by comfortable, I just mean like the most conflict. Yes, listen, you and I are 2 or 3 weeks out from a show. We're stripping our shirt off, not thinking fucking twice. Deep in an off season, hairy, not shaven, pale as a ghost, man, you're like, fuck. I'll take my shirt off. We're gonna go to the pool, but this is not gonna be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, and neither of us are guys who are like, our stomachs aren't like hanging over our swim trunks, for example. It's a different look.
yeah,
So I think until next time, Chris, Dave, that's all things what? Insulin, feedback for our early 20s, and then how to keep strong on the barbells, man. Like, so take that, apply it, get better for next week, and we will be here on another Monday. See you guys.